former Councilor Brendan Creighton. City Councilor at Large, Brian Lapierre. Where's Brian? City Councilor Pete Capano. Where's Peter? School Committee Member Jared Nicholson. Did I miss anybody? Anybody else? Elected officials? No? Yeah, we'll get to her. First of all, thank you so much. And again, this is there's a lot of big things happening in the city of Lynn. Tonight really is not us talking at you, it's to get your input. So with that, I would like to introduce the head of the city, our mayor, Judith Flanagan.
A whole lot on the agenda tonight except to welcome everybody here, and I will say that this is probably about 2 to 3 times the size of the crowd that I expected to see here, so thank you so much for sharing your views on the city with us. It's really important because we all have our individual ideas about what we would like to see developed in the city and the direction in which we would like to see the city go, but really the people who should have a strong voice in that are all of you who are out there tonight. So thank you very much for coming. Jim pretty much stole everything I was supposed to say, because I was supposed to say, we value your input, but we do. So it's worth repeating. We do value your input. And again, I want to thank all of you for coming out on an awful, rainy, raw, cold night, but just keep saying, this is my mantra for this whole year. It's not snow. It's not snow. Then I don't mind getting a little bit wet. But here to help us get through this process tonight and to start with a brief video presentation is our fellow from MassDevelopment. He is helping the City of Lynn with a lot of its development plans, and he's been a great partner for the city. I want to welcome Joe Mulligan. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate the partnership and the commitment that the city and its various departments have made to this initiative. And thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. This is spectacular. I'm so happy that we got a good turnout because I've been hearing a lot about how much Lynn means to the people who live here and how much they love it and how much they appreciate it and how much they aspire for it to be a great place for them to work and to live and to play and to make it attractive for others. My title is fellow. I'm not sure what it exactly means, but it sounds esteemed, so no complaints. My background is in architecture and planning, and I'm happy to have been part of the first year of the rollout of an initiative sponsored by MassDevelopment, which we partner with local municipalities, and I'm specifically dedicated to Lynn, and we partner with the city, our private sector partners, including Gordy Hall, the Hall Company, who is our current partner, and we hope to expand that partnership, and Charlie Gator from the Housing Authority, Jim Cavdell from EDIC, and they've been great hosts to us and to this initiative. What we're doing in this, and it's kind of a multi-year approach where rather than kind of breeze over at 10,000 feet and then jet out, the hope was that we could have establish a partnership that had a longer-term commitment that really rolled up our sleeves and took a deep dive into looking at the issues that are affecting the local neighborhood and the community, and to find strategies through planning or design that we can begin to improve the district, or find strategies that people have concern about and bring them up for a level of discussion so that we can find solutions and we can find ways to address those. So it's not a silver bullet. We don't come with there's not a Brinks truck behind me necessarily that we can open up and start making it rain. But what we do have is access to resources that we can bring to bear here. And there is a fortuitous coincidence that has happened, and Jim and the mayor have been a big part of it, with the governor designating Lynn as one of their economic development priorities in the Commonwealth. So there's a Lynn Economic Advancement Development Team that's been meeting on a regular basis, and we hope to have some more discussion with folks in the future about that. But what that does is give Lynn immediate and direct access to people who can make decisions and who can bring resources on a state and federal level in combination with local resources and inspiring and motivating and aggregating opportunities with the private sector and with residents in the community. So I'm really excited to be here in Lynn at this time because there's a lot of things happening right now. We're in a relatively good economy that we hope sustains for a while, and that we might be able to pull some benefits from that. You're obviously in a community rich with history and resources and arts and culture and proximity to spectacular natural beauty. You know, we're on the ocean here in the Lynn Harbor, and you're a stone's throw from the Lynn Woods, and you got a great golf course, you got a marina, you got everything you want. Why would anybody leave, right? It's a great place. And I got to tell you, from my experience, I haven't been here quite a year yet, but to a person, everybody has been so welcoming and so inviting and so friendly and so optimistic and positive about Lynn. And I really think that's one of the most important things. It's the resources, the people, what you all bring to the table, and what you can help us all accomplish. It's not going to be done by somebody 100 miles away or somebody who works in a building somewhere off in the distance. It comes from the community, it comes from the neighbors, it comes from the people who work and live here. So tonight we're going to go, we're going to pick up on, we've done some focus groups over the last couple of months, and we had an earlier stakeholder meeting, and we've had some survey information in which we've gathered information, we've done some analysis, we've done some research, and we have a consultant group who will join us, Interface Studios. And tonight, Scott Page is going to, he's going to walk us through some of their findings and some of their analysis, and then we're going to do some more work that I'll let Scott talk about. And where's Ashley? Ashley has been great in terms of helping us with the program and getting everything running. And let me just, well, I got a moment. I believe some folks from MassDevelopment here too. I just want to acknowledge Richard Henderson, who's the director of real estate, and Tanya Hartford, who does a lot of technical assistance with community planning. So we're all in on this. This is not just something that we're going to take a quick flyby and then jet out. We're committed, and we want to see results, and we want to hear from you tonight. So let me introduce Scott Page from Interface Studios. Thanks.
How is everybody? Good. All right. Thank you for coming out. This is an amazing turnout. Just a quick introduction. My company, Interface Studio, I founded about 11 years ago. We're designers and planners, and we really have a couple roles here. We're here to listen and learn from all of you about how downtown could be better. And then ultimately, we're here to help as well. So we do a lot of work in different cities, and in future meetings, we'll be sharing some of those design ideas, actions for downtown based upon what you're telling us tonight and in many other meetings that we've been having. So that's our role. Joe's already covered the fact that there are lots of partners here. There are a lot of things happening in Lynn, and this is funded as part of MassDevelopment's Transformative Development Initiative. So it's looking at specific cities across the state and bringing technical resources to help understand what people want to see in their communities, but also helping with respect to financing, implementation, development, a really important partner to have. So why are we here? Because one of the things we've heard before, just in meeting with individuals in downtown, is that we've done this kind of planning here in Lynn before, haven't we? Yes, you have. This is not a plan. This is a focused action strategy. So whereas sometimes plans will give you the big picture vision and they'll talk about big goals and objectives, we are very focused on the tactical kind of things that we can do in downtown that you can see, that you can touch, that you can feel. Things that make downtown look different, operate different, function differently, welcome more businesses, welcome more people. So we're really looking at specific actions that we can fund and that we can see in the ground very, very quickly. So when we're talking about downtown, we're really looking at this core of downtown. Around Central Ave, Market Street, Buffalo Street, Broad Street, Liberty Street. The lines on this map just outline where we're kind of focused, but the lines do not suggest that we're not looking beyond them, right? Planning and cities, they never occur in a vacuum. There's never a line on a map that says you do something here and then you ignore everything else. This is just a place for us to start and a focus of where we're looking at a lot of information about downtown, which is what we'd like to share with you tonight. So what we've been doing the last few months is collecting data. Been collecting data about Lynn, collecting data about downtown. We've been listening to individuals in downtown, just trying to get a sense of what are the challenges that downtown faces today and what are the opportunities. So I'm going to start with some of the assets. And Joe already covered a couple of these, right? You have many assets. You're a short walk to the river. You have Lynn Woods. You're close to Boston. You have amazing historic architecture. You have all of these wonderful things that help make Lynn, downtown in particular, right? So as I said, you're very close to Boston. You know that's an amenity. And I think 2 people tonight have already told me that's one of the advantages of Lynn. You have these great natural resources. It includes the Lynn Woods. Just about all of downtown, which is this little nub here that I showed you before, is within a 10-minute walk to the waterfront. Of course, that walk is not really pleasant. We know there are major barriers to get to the water. So that becomes something that people have talked about. It would be nice if we had a stronger connection to the water. It's not just about the location, of course. You have some history and some businesses, legacy businesses, draws people from a long, long distance. Right? So people know about these kinds of places. And certainly the Downtown Lynn Cultural District has already started to capitalize on the things that make Lynn unique. Right? Arts, culture, the different types of organizations that are happening, and you start to see more and more of that activity in downtown. You have museums, you have artists, you have art studios, you have art programs that are teaching art to kids. You have a lot of wonderful things happening in a very small area. You also have, as I noted quickly before, a lot of historic architecture. So, admittedly, Ashley and I are not from Lynn. Right? We're from Philadelphia. So the first time we came to Lynn about 6 months ago, we walked around with a few folks. We're like, wow, look at all of the buildings that exist in this downtown, some of which are just outstanding. So you have 35 buildings on the National Register just within this little core of downtown. Right? So it's obviously something the city has valued for a long time, and it's something that we'd want to capitalize on and really make the most of whenever the strategy produces. Buildings like this. We also talked about the Lynn Cultural District. One of the other things that struck us when we were here, in Philadelphia, we have a very large program that puts public art out in the streets. It's called the Mural Arts Program. Lynn has essentially a version of that here, where you start to see public art in all different spaces throughout downtown, whether it's on utility boxes, it's under the train, it's murals on the side of buildings. That growing movement and certainly the talent that's here in Lynn, you're beginning to see out on the streets and the plazas and the buildings. And that's something that's really wonderful. You also have things like this. This is the community garden, right in downtown, which is a really unique asset and program. And you have a really diverse population. That's something else that you really notice when you're on the streets. Right? Lynn has a history of being a diverse city, and you see that out in the streets. We've noticed about a quarter of the signs just in this downtown area are in a language other than English. So that when we start to think about capitalizing on the diversity, when people talk about what they like about Lynn, some of what we've heard is, we like that it's diverse. So the action strategy should look for ways to really encourage and reinforce that diversity. You have about 3,400 people that work downtown. It's a fair amount of people. We ask questions like, all right, if you have 3,400 people working downtown, where do they go for lunch? Are there enough people going out to lunch, for instance, if they're working downtown? Are we making the most of the people that are coming to Lynn on a day-to-day basis with respect to supporting local retail, local restaurants? We have a burgeoning restaurant scene here in Lynn, certainly. Are we making the most of this kind of an opportunity? But at the same time, one of the things that we've noticed, and this is kind of a quirk of Lynn, you only have about 1,400 people that live just within downtown, certainly more around the edges. And what you see is that what each dot in this map represents, and even sitting way in the back, you can probably recognize that the dots are concentrated in specific buildings. Right? So in a lot of other downtowns, whether you're a small city or a big city, a map like this would show dots kind of across the entire area. People living above stores, housing scattered throughout downtown, because what that does is more people living downtown, there's more people that shop, go out to eat, and support local businesses. So we have this issue here where it's not quite a neighborhood in downtown Lynn. There's not quite enough people living here to support a lot of business. So these are some of the kinds of developments. You see a lot of those folks live in these single-use towers, right, like this tower. And so that means we have to really mind the gaps, which is why we see some empty storefront space. And one of the questions we've been asking is, well, if you come to downtown to shop, where do you go? And people have given us different stories about where they go. And some of what they've told us is that, well, we go to this restaurant, but then the other store we might go to is 3 blocks away, and there's really nothing in between that we want to do. So there's an issue of how do we connect all of the real amenities in downtown so that even visitors who aren't familiar with Lynn, and we do want visitors as much as we want residents and everyone to participate in Lynn, even visitors that aren't familiar with Lynn, how would they know where the stores are, where the restaurants are, so that we can support more business? So that gets to this point, about supporting more local businesses, which ultimately, it might sound a little strange, but things like public art, which has been happening here, planting trees, street furniture, lighting, those kinds of things are not just about making downtown look better, it's also about encouraging more business, more jobs, more economic development. And that's a strategy that, again, large and small cities across the city have been picking up on. You can make these smaller investments and it has a real benefit. We've made a few errors in downtown. So you think about how we develop downtown is equally important. So when there are opportunities to develop in downtown, do we want to develop in a way that really caters more to the car? Or do we want to develop in a way that historically downtown has developed, which is a more urban kind of fabric, right? These buildings are pulled up to the street, there's a mix of uses, there's a lot of, it really helps to encourage a lot of activity on the street, which is a good thing, because if people tell us they're feeling unsafe, actually more activity helps to reduce those kinds of perceptions. We also took a look over the last few months at every single property in downtown, and we said, well, is it used? If it's used, what is it used for? Housing, commercial, etc. But we also noted where are the buildings and lots downtown that have nothing on them, right? Empty space, vacant buildings, vacant lots. So right now, if you include the parking lots and your empty buildings and vacant lots, it's about 35% of downtown, right? So it's about a third of downtown. So when people tell us that there's not enough connected uses downtown, there's not a restaurant next to a store, this is part of the problem. Right? We have some empty spaces and some parking lots that break up the fabric of downtown. So things like this. And I can tell you that parking lots develop for a very specific reason. Right? When Lynn, like many other cities for years, started to see a lot more empty buildings and empty space, this became the easiest way to make money off of property. Right? You develop a parking lot, you charge some money for parking. It is the highest and best use at that time. But as Lynn has all of these different activities, more people interested in downtown, the question will be going forward, how do we transition from this kind of use to something a little bit different? But recognize that yes, we still have to accommodate the car, we still have to provide parking, because all of that is also important for business. So there's a balance. We also have a lot of properties in Lynn that are tax exempt. Actually a high percentage in Lynn compared to some other cities. So tax exempt, nonprofits, churches, the MBTA facilities, that's a lot of tax exempt properties, which means that there's not a lot of money coming from those properties to help fund improvements downtown. I don't want anyone to get the impression that I think this is necessarily a bad thing across the board, right? Some of these nonprofits and churches provide valuable services. They're important aspects of the community. It just helps us realize that as we start to think about the future of downtown, that we want to look for businesses and housing and other types of activities that do help to bring more money to downtown and support business in addition. This is probably the biggest comment that we've heard so far. So beyond the development opportunities, do we have enough housing? Are we making the most of the folks that are coming here to work? Does it feel safe downtown? And we get very different perspectives on this. I think a lot of this has to do more with perception than anything else. So it does start with the train. Sometimes when you look out from the train and you take a certain perspective, this is the view of downtown, which is beautiful, and it highlights some of those historic buildings and architecture. But at other times you see things like this. A number of folks have told us that part of the problem is that if you're coming through Lynn on the train, you see empty buildings, it looks dark at night, it looks a little foreboding, and we all know that Lynn has, unfortunately, a negative reputation that's been fostered for a long time. So these kinds of images don't really help to change the perception, because for the folks that are here in downtown, we know better, right? We know that Lynn has a lot of great things going on here, so we want to really address some of these issues around perception. That garage doesn't help. I don't think I have to say anything more about this image. This doesn't help either. So the garage, the top couple floors of the garage, are completely empty on any given day. So we would ask two questions about that. One, why aren't people parking in the garage? And often what we hear is that it feels a little unsafe, or it feels too far from where I want to go downtown. Frankly, there's a parking lot that's closer to where I want to be anyway, so why would I bother with the garage? The second question is, well, if no one's parking in the garage, then could we use that top floor for something a little different? It doesn't have to be parking. So we did this map that shows a 5-minute walk from the garage. So here's the garage, that big garage. And this green area is a 5-minute walk. So what that shows you is that actually most of downtown is within a 5-minute walk, a very close walk. And if you think about it, if you go to a Walmart on a Christmas Eve and you park at the farthest end of the parking lot, you are a 5-minute walk from the front door. Right? So it's actually a very close walk to the garage, but it doesn't feel like it's close. It feels disconnected, and it feels a little unsafe. So in some of the ways that you get to the garage does not help. You have places like this. We saw people waiting outside today for the bus in the rain. We have this plaza that needs a little attention. And you have a significant number of parking spaces downtown. So there are 3,300 parking spaces downtown. Right? So what that means is it's not a quantity issue. Right? Some people have said, look, parking is a problem downtown. I do not believe this is an issue of how many spaces you have. I believe it's an issue of, are the spaces in the right place for where people would like them? Right? Because we have, as I've already pointed out, 2, maybe more floors of this garage completely empty on any given day. Right? So it's not a quantity issue, it's a location issue. Now we did collect some crime information because people constantly said, look, we have some concerns about crime downtown. So what this map shows, this highlights the area that we're kind of focused on, and all of the darker spots represent crime hotspots. So for crimes against people or crimes against property. If you zoom in a little bit, this is downtown, and you can see some of the context around it. You see this in a darker spot here around Washington. So it looks bad, but it's actually not that bad. And this is the reason we say that. 6% of crimes of the entire city happen in downtown. That is not a high percentage. And all downtowns have more crime than other neighborhoods because there's more commercial businesses, and that's where you have most of the crimes against property, break-ins, that kind of stuff. Happens in our hometown of Philadelphia, happens in Boston, happens everywhere. Right, so you always have a slightly higher percentage downtown because that's where the businesses are. So it's really not, we actually do believe this is more of a perception problem than it is a reality. Right? So we talked about the perception. the look and feel of some of those buildings. And often what helps to change some of those perceptions is the quality of the public space, the streets, the parks, those kinds of things downtown. So what we've highlighted on this map are all of the open spaces, and we've generously colored them as green, but many of them are not. They just happen to be open. So we have some opportunities here to think about what kind of public space, open space, green space could we have downtown, and what could it be used for? So Central Square, for instance, visibly nicer than it was years ago. A lot of people have mentioned this. It's a beautiful shot. It's a beautiful location in downtown. And sometimes there are events here. We also know the farmers market has been successful. That and other events on the lot that's right there, next door to us. But we asked the question, this is not Lynn. We asked the question, where could things like this happen on a more regular basis? Right? Not just a few events when there's a lot of interest to put forth the effort to create them and make them happen, but things that can happen on a regular basis, right? Spaces that are designed to let people use them. We noticed that there's not a single bench downtown, public bench downtown. If someone would like to correct me, I'm open to hear that. But we started looking to see, are there benches downtown where you could even sit? And you notice here, years ago, when folks started to pull out this kind of furniture, it didn't matter what kind of city you were in, the reaction was absolutely not. That furniture will get stolen. It will be a complete nightmare. And in actuality, the opposite has happened. People maintain and take care of that space because they're always using it. And it becomes something that businesses want to be close to, and it becomes kind of a symbol of what that downtown or that city is about. As I said, the reality is we have some open spaces downtown, but the kind of leftover spaces is how they feel. So we already showed this picture. This is the pedestrian plaza that leads to the garage. This is the other side of the garage. I guess you could count this as a bench. It's a wall. I'll give that a bench. There are some nice, beautiful spaces like this, but it's kind of walled off from the surrounding. And then you have a lot of these leftover triangles, right? These spaces that we just didn't know what to do with because the streets kind of cut them up, and really that's too small for a new building, but what could it be? You have these kind of leftover spaces. We could show you pictures like this for a while. But that's actually one of the unique opportunities you have in downtown. You have this crazy street system that I'm only just now beginning to understand how to drive around. And that street system causes issues like this, right? It's not just about how you drive, but for those that are walking, we have a lot of pictures of people playing Frogger, trying to get across the street, right? Jumping across the street and avoiding traffic. You know, a lot of issues, whether it's for people we see every day, people with strollers, the elderly, of which there is a large elderly population in downtown. These are real safety and quality of life issues that have to do with simple pedestrian safety. Is it safe to walk around downtown? So we noted a couple things. All of these, some of these actually intersections don't have any crosswalks. And in fact, a few people today have already pointed out intersections that don't have any crosswalks. There are also some crosswalks that kind of exist. They could be a little bit more pronounced. We've also noted on this where the inactive frontages are. That's what these blue areas are. So what's an inactive frontage? It's a blank wall, it's an empty building, it's a parking lot. In other words, it's not the front of a building that has a front door where you can see in the building and people in the building can see outside to the street. So we also have some issues where people say, look, I don't feel safe walking to the garage. You can look at where some of these streets are, where there are blank walls or parking lots, and you understand why they would say that. It just feels a little empty at night. We also looked at crash data. 200 recorded crashes in the last year. So that's about 4 per week. So those are car-on-car crashes, car-on-pedestrians, and basically we've scaled these according to how many crashes. This is the top vote getter right here on market. There were 10 crashes in the last year. That's right across from the grocery store. Right? So if you're trying to get across Market Street and come downtown, that's where a lot of those problems are occurring. So that's why we say that this kind of action strategy, looking at things like crosswalks and sidewalks and wayfinding signage, is important, not just because it helps to attract business downtown, but because it's fundamentally about safety. And that's something that we all care about. So what we should be thinking about is complete streets. So what's a complete street? Well, it's not this. He's trying to get across to you. So complete streets are designed for everybody. So they're designed for walking, they're designed for bicycling, they're designed for transit, and yes, they're also designed for cars, but they're not designed for cars at the expense of walking, biking, and taking transit. Right, so when we're talking about complete streets, we know that the city has a complete streets policy on the books. We're looking for opportunities to make it safer to do those other things and understand that streets are for everybody. So these are examples from New York. This is an example from Peabody, where they started to look at some of the issues that they have with streets. This looks like one of the intersections on Central, but it's actually in Peabody, where they started to make some targeted improvements. New open space, maybe they're ensuring that the crosswalk is visible. They're looking at ways to make sure that if you're walking across the street or if you're riding your bike, you can do so safely. So it's a number of these different kinds of things that we'll be talking about. Do we have signalized intersections, not just the blinking red? Do we have sidewalks that are effective? Are there trees on the street, which often help to really improve the look and feel for businesses and residents? So other downtowns have faced these kinds of challenges. And so I'm going to show you a couple inspiration images, because as I said, our job here is to listen and learn. Ultimately, it's to help as well. But listen and learn, because we think that, and I've already noticed, you all were not shy in already providing your ideas, even as you came in the door, so that's wonderful. These are the kinds of things that other cities have tried. This is a movie on top of a garage. This is a pop-up ice rink. Yeah, you can do pop-up ice rinks. You probably don't need the fake ice up here, but maybe this winter you would. Outdoor seating, things like greening, whether it's in how you treat the sidewalks, how you plant the streets, the kinds of open spaces that you create, the kind of programming that happens in those open spaces to encourage people to use them. These are lighting examples from different cities. All of these lighting examples, I think, bring a very unique kind of spirit, something that I think Lynn would do really well with. Right? You've got a unique spirit in Lynn. I think the lighting and whatever we design, whether it's public art or street furniture or crosswalks, should reflect the funkiness of this town. And so these are different examples. Go back on the lighting. These are different LED examples that really help to bring a certain amount of activity and interest to a downtown. It's not just the standard light fixture that you see in every city. It's a different approach. There's certainly opportunities with street design. Sometimes that means adding medians. Sometimes that can mean bumping out the sidewalks to make it safer to cross. It can mean a lot of different things, even creating plazas. This was at one time 2 streets that came together, creating a really unsafe intersection. What they found was that they could close this street and turn it into a plaza, and it didn't affect traffic at all. Once folks learned how to get around that intersection, which took about a week, everything was much better. Well, wayfinding and street furniture, so signage in particular. A lot of cities have done some interesting things with signs. How do you get anywhere downtown if you don't know it really well? You rely on signage. And there are some cities that do signs in multiple languages. I think that would be a great idea here, particularly since we have such a diverse population. But also signage that's a little bit, I would call that off-kilter and interesting, things that get noticed, right? I think that's the kind of opportunity we have in Lynn. So, just go back one. Okay. This is kind of where I'm going to leave it in terms of inspiration. But I would want to say that all of these images are really just here for inspiration. We just pulled them from different cities because we thought they were interesting. And we have some of these images on all of the different stations. Again, just as inspiration. But what we need to do is learn from you. I have two fundamental beliefs about public meetings. One, they should not last forever. I'm doing pretty good. Two, we have to find as many ways to get meaningful ideas from you as possible. Because the structure of this whole action plan is that we've done some analysis, we've shared it with you. This is what we've learned about Lynn, but that's only what we've learned through the data. Ultimately, we learn the most from hearing from you. We have 5 different stations and on that side of the room. All of them designed around this theme of big ideas. Right? We need your ideas for different parts of downtown. Because what we're going to do is look at what you've told us in terms of what your ideas are, what your priorities are. The next time we have a public meeting like this, we will share with you some initial designs based upon what you've told us. So it's your chance to shape the design and the process. It's not your only chance, but it is one of many chances. And it really does help us as designers begin to put something together that everyone here is excited about and that we know that will actually be implemented in a very short time frame. Okay. So, we need to hear from you. Actually, I want to share with you a couple things that we've already heard. We did, when we first started this process, we had a bigger stakeholders meeting. Joe, there were like 40 people here. And we had a map of all of downtown Lynn, and we asked the folks that were there, why don't you tell us where we should focus some activity? Not so much what we should do, but if there was a place to focus for different kinds of things, where should we focus? One of the things people said, they said, look, wayfinding, signage, and the pedestrian experience, crosswalks, sidewalks, those kinds of things are absolutely essential. They also talked about public safety, as I mentioned tonight, and then on down the list as you get into arts and other things. Now with the map, the way that we like to read these maps, we created little hotspots based upon how many people told us where in downtown we needed to focus. So this was for streets and circulation. If we were going to improve streets, say complete streets, make it safer for people to walk, bike, and others, as well as drive, where should we focus? And if you squint at a map like this, it's pretty clear where there's a lot of interest. This is Central Ave, and this is Market Street. All right, so one of the activities we have tonight is about Central Avenue because it keeps coming up when we ask questions around crosswalks and sidewalks and pedestrian safety. This is a map that's about open spaces. So if we were to have some new open spaces, where would be good locations for them? Not so much how they'd be designed or what they would be, but where would those good locations be? So you notice there's a bunch of interest right around the T, and then there's a really dark spot over here at the end. There's an auto body shop on a triangle, right across from a couple really great restaurants. That is certainly something that people have noted would be a wonderful opportunity for something different in the future. And then we asked a question about lighting. Where should we focus on lighting? And again, if you squint at a map like this, everything around and under the T, the rail, is what comes out strongly. So we also have an exercise back there where we're asking about your big ideas for what should happen around the T, the station, the MBTA garage. So I'm going to take you through some of these exercises because they're all very self-explanatory. You've already demonstrated they're self-explanatory because, as I said, a lot of you have already done some of them, so thank you. In the corner, there are 2 boards up on easels. All of these exercises are meant to be really simple, but we learn so much from them. We want you to give us one word to describe downtown Lynn today. It can be a positive word, a negative word, whatever comes to mind. And then one word to describe it tomorrow. So something that's more hopeful. If you were to close your eyes in 10, 20 years, and you were to describe downtown Lynn in that time frame, what's the word that you would use? We also have a couple different boards. One is for Central Avenue, one is for the train station, that's in the back, and one are for 3 or different kinds of open spaces, potential open spaces in downtown. And we're essentially just asking, look, what are your big ideas for these spaces? We've provided some of the inspiration images on a couple of them. But for Central Avenue, I want to make a specific case on how to use the map. So next to the map, we have these cards. The cards have a sticker. And so if you have an idea this is an idea card. You would put that sticker on the map and then write your idea on the card. The reason that's important is because the sticker and the card have the same number on it, so we can tie exactly what all of the ideas are to a specific place on Central Ave. We also have a card for insights or observations, right? I have an issue with this intersection, or I don't like the way that the traffic speed here. So that's just helpful for us to know. So that's just some background on the Central Avenue map. We also have a downtown Lynn survey. If you've already participated in a focus group, if you've talked to us, if you've already filled out this survey, or if you did it online, because we do have a website where we're posting all of this information, you don't need to fill this out today. But if you haven't filled one out and would like to, these are, again, against the back wall over there. It's just a 2-page survey. Again, it helps us to understand your interest in downtown and some of the things that you'd like to see improved. Definitely stay tuned in terms of what's happening with the project. This is the website where we've been posting information that's actually on this card. The back side of this is just a general comment card, so if there's something I didn't say, if we didn't ask you about, if there didn't seem to be the right place to give us your idea about something specifically, you can write it here and leave that with us. Did I hit everything? Okay. And here we are in the schedule. This is a very fast time frame. So we're going to be back to do another meeting like this in late April or early May. And that's when we're going to take what we've learned from you and present some preliminary ideas and have you weigh in on them. Did we get it right? Are we missing something? Should we consider something different? That's a really important part of the process because, again, we need everyone here to be excited about the action strategy, which is what helps to get things moving and implemented. So we are here in March. We started in late fall where we just started collecting data, and then we'll be done by May or June. And what should be happening at that point is not just drawings that show what downtown could be some way off in the distance future, but what downtown Lynn could be in the next 6 months, in the next year, in the next 2 years. All right, so it's action strategy. And that's one thing we want to emphasize over and over. So in line with my first principle that public meetings should not be overly long, this is where I get to close. But in line with the second principle, which is we need to learn from you, please make sure, if you haven't already, to go to each of the stations. And myself, Ashley, Joe, can you stand in the back of the room? Okay. And Tanya, where'd Tanya go? Yeah, Tanya will be over by the wall. You can ask any of us questions about this presentation, the strategy, where we're going, about the specific images. But once you've done all of the activities, you're free to go. There's no coming back together. I'm not going to belabor this. This is our chance to learn. But the more you tell us, the better the strategy is. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Again, we will be wandering around, but please do give us your thoughts. Thank you very much.